वेदऋषयः समारभ्य वेदान्ताचार्या मध्यमाः योगीरां सुरत्कुमारपर्यन्तं वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Salutations and adorations to all the great preceptors of the holy land of Bharatavarsha, right from the Vedic Rishis to the great Vedanta Acharyas, to my Diksha Guru, Yogiram Surat Kumar Maharaj of Tiruvannamalai. Ratnakara Dhautapatam Himalaya Kiritinim Brahmaraja Rishiratnadyam Vande Bharata Mataram. Salutations and adorations to our holy motherland Bharatavarsha, whose sacred feet are washed by three great oceans, whose crown is the mighty Himalayas, and who is adorned with the jewels of Brahma Rishis and Raja Rishis. Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahavidyam Karavavahai Tejasvi Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Today we are starting Vijnana Bharati course. It is a series of lectures on Hindu thought and culture, the wisdom of Bharatavarsha, which has come down to us through ages. Vijnana, what it is? We get jnana through jnanendriyas, indriyas parsa jnanam. When our indriyas come in contact with the objects, artha, indriyartha jnanam, we get that jnana knowledge. I see the chair there, I understand that it is a chair. I see the mic here, I see the pictures, I hear the voice through my ears, I get the smell of the flowers, and I get the taste through my tongue. All these perceptions, sense perceptions, bring knowledge to me, jnanam. When I understand all these things rightly, samyak jnanam, I understand that it is a chair, I understand that it is a mic, then it is some jnanam. What is vijnanam? Vijnanam is analytic understanding of things. I read a book or I hear a speech, I grab what message is conveyed by hearing. So, analytical understanding of the thing, it is vijnanam. With that knowledge, all my actions are done. Vijnanam yajnam thanuti, the great Vedic Rishi said. Once we have got proper understanding or analytic knowledge of things, then you do things. Yajnam is any action. Action is done with the proper understanding. So, Vijnana Bharati, that Vijnanam, not knowledge, what knowledge we are going to get through this course, Vijnana Bharati. Bharati, Bha means light, knowledge, wisdom. Ratha means to revel, to shine. Bharata is the name of our motherland, Bharatavarsha, because since ages, times immemorial, great rishis and sages have made their advent in this land. They have taught us wisdom, knowledge of everything, anything and everything under the sun, even about the solar system, about the trees, about the plants, about our physical structure, about medicine, about astrology, astronomy, psychology. All fields of knowledge have been covered by the great sages and seers of Bharatavarsha. Through centuries, this knowledge has come down to us. If you go to Saraswati Mahal Library in Bangalore, in Tanjavur, you find very ancient manuscripts covering all fields of knowledge which the great rishis have contributed. So, proper study, understanding, and then exposition they have made. Therefore, this land is known as Bharata Varsha, the land of knowledge and wisdom. The great sages and seers, they also dictated Ethaddesha prasudasya sakasad agrajanmanaha swam swam charitram shiksheran prithivyaha sarvamanavaha. This knowledge is not just for a few people, to a caste or creed or a community or a people of a particular nation. It is for the entire world. The whole world must sit at the feet of the great Bharata Varsha and learn all fields of knowledge and wisdom. That is what the great rishis proclaimed. Now we are going to pass through all these various fields of knowledge which the great rishis have presented. Our field of knowledge, it begins with the study of the Vedas. Vida is that which is known. Whatever the rishis had known and whatever they gave, that is known as Veda. And from Vedas covered all aspects of human life and human endeavor. What is the purpose of giving all this knowledge and wisdom? The rishis were very clear in their understanding. Human being is endowed with the faculty of reason. Of course, other living beings, some of them have got some fragments of reason. A dog or a cat can understand things. But human understanding, analytical and going deep into every field of knowledge, that rational capacity is only for human beings. Therefore, man is called a rational being. What is this reason? What is the purpose of this rational knowledge or reason? We are born, we live for a certain period of time, and we become extinct. Everyone that is born must necessarily depart from this world. That is the law of nature. Nothing can remain permanently in this world. And therefore, there is a span of human life for us. How are we to live this span of life? The great sages and seers analyzed it, and they presented before us the various periods of life which a man must pass through if his life has to become full, complete and perfect. Brahmacharya, as a student, I sit at the feet of great preceptor and I get knowledge and wisdom from the masters. In the Gurukula, all subjects were taught and all forms of action were also taught to the disciples. That Gurukula period may be 10 years or 15 years or 20, even 20, 25 years. The Shishya remains in the Gurukula and learns everything from the master. After Brahmacharya, his life starts. He enters into active life. Garhastya, he gets married, settles down in family life. And in the Garhastya life, he has to perform various acts. Acts of charity, acts of devotion, acts of service. All these are taught. How a Grihastha should live a life, everything is taught by the great rishis. And according to their teaching, the person lives a life. There is a stage when he will have to withdraw from all activities. Because when the human life comes to the fag end, one cannot continue all the past activities. Slowly he has to withdraw from all activities and turn within. Because he has to realize who he is, what is the purpose and meaning and purpose of his life. The purpose of his life is to realize himself, self-realization, Atma Sakshatkara. That is our great rishis which called as moksha. Moksha is not going to some heaven or somewhere, It is not like that. Moksha is realizing oneself. So that process of realizing oneself, it is through meditation, contemplation, swadhyaya, studies, all these processes. When he is in the vanaprastha, he is free from all external activities. He has no responsibilities to the society or duty to the family. He turns within and he lives the life of contemplation, meditation, and such spiritual activities. Antar Yoga, it is called. And ultimately, he realizes himself. Once he realizes who he is, who am I? Where from I have come? What is the purpose of life? Everything I have realized. I understand that I am none other than that supreme consciousness which manifests in the entire universe. Once that self-realization comes, it is samyak nyasam, perfect understanding or unity yoga, and that is called life of a sannyasi. Then even the activities of meditation, contemplation, etc., they continue, but all other external activities are stopped. A man lives perfectly in unity with his self-consciousness. That samyak nyasam, that is final end of human life. So the great rishis gave us such a form of life. And the Vedas, the Vedic rishis, they gave us various fields of knowledge about bhautik, external world. They gave physics, chemistry, mathematics, religion, everything was covered by the rishis. And internal knowledge and wisdom, that field is known as Upanishads. The Vedas contain mantras. Mantras means contemplation and meditation on the ultimate reality. That was taught in the Vedas. And once we realize that what is realized, perfect understanding of that realization, it is expounded in the Upanishads. Upanishads means come sit before me, near me. So the Shishya sits before the master, and from there he understands, from him he understands everything. That is Upanishad. So Vedas and Upanishads, these are the foundations of our Indian culture. Now when I say the word Indian culture or Hindu culture, we have to have a proper understanding. What is Hindu? Who is Hindu? Our great rishis proclaimed the geographical background of our culture and heritage. They pointed out the geographical area. Sindhu Sindhu Paryeta Yasya Bharata Bhumika Pitrubhu Punyabhuschaiva Savai Hindu Ritis Mrutaha. Sindhu is a great river in the Himalayas. The great rishis, they developed the Vedic culture sitting on the banks of river Sindh. And from there it expanded everywhere. It came down to the south. Sindhu, in the southern tip of the land, is Indus Ocean. Indus Ocean is called Sindhu. Sindhu means an expanse of water. There Himalayas, a mighty mountain touching the sky, and here an expanse of water taking to the bottom of the earth, Sindhu. From that river Sindhu to this ocean Sindhu, this geographical territory, they called it Bharata Varsha, the land that revels in the field of knowledge and wisdom. And those who consider this land as Pitrubhu Punyabhu, it is the land of their forefathers. I am born in this land, my forefathers are all born in this land. So I am a Bharatiya. And not only that, I consider this land as holy land, Punya Bhumi, Karma Bhumi, Moksha Bhumi. If a person does not adore and worship the land of his birth as his Punya Bhumi, Karma Bhumi, Moksha Bhumi, he is not eligible to be considered as the son of the soil, as a Hindu. So, I may worship, I may go to 100 temples, I may go to church, I may go to synagogue, I may go to mosque, I may have various forms of worship, unless and until I adore and worship this land of birth as Bharata Varsha, land of knowledge and wisdom, then only I become a Hindu. This culture and heritage that was developed by the great masters in this land of Bharata Varsha, it is our Indian culture, what we call. This land is known as Hindustanam, the land of the Hindus. Barhaspatya Samhita and Vishnu Purana. Vishnu Purana very categorically describes, clearly describes the territory. Uttaram yat samudrasya himadriyasya dakshinam varsham tad bharatam nama bharati yatra sandati. Uttaram yat samudrasya. Samudra is Indian Ocean, Sindhu. Northern side of the Indian Ocean. Himadriyasya dakshinam. Himadri is Himalayas. Dakshinam is southern part. So, the southern part of Himalayas and the northern part of the Sindhu. Uttaram yat samudrasya himadriyasya dakshinam varsham tad bharatam nama. That land is Bharata. Veera Savarkar, the great patriot and scholar, in his Hindutva, he very categorically defines the word Hindu. He says, Sindhu Paryeta Yasya Bharata Bhumiga Pitrubhu Punyabhuschaiva Savai Hinduriti Smrutaha. All those who adore and worship this land as Punya Bhumi, Karma Bhumi, they are Hindus. So we have a clear understanding what Hindutva is. People from other lands, they have been welcomed into this land. In ancient India, the Greeks, the Persians, the Egyptians, they all walked into this land, crossed the borders and walked into this land and attained wisdom. We had great universities, Nalanda, Takshashila, Vikramshila, all these are ancient universities. Fahian, Huyan Sang, even the man who is known as Jesus the Christ, he came to India. At the age of 14, he came to India. He stayed in Benares. He stayed in Kashmir. He lived in India for many years. Then he returned to Jerusalem. There, the Romans, they could not accept his preachings, etc. And they put him on the cross. But Mary of Magdalena and his mother Mary, they saved him and they brought him back to India. Jesus Christ died, Jesus Christ's mother died in a place called Murree, which is now in Pakistan. And Jesus Christ came and lived in Kashmir. He died in Kashmir. His samadhi is by the Rosebud Lake in Kashmir. So we can understand that all the great scholars, Al-Biruni, Fahian, whoever have come into this land, they have acquired this great knowledge and wisdom of Bharata Varsha. And the great scholars, they have also prescribed various paths of worship, contemplation, meditation based on our Vedic culture. The great Buddha, he gave us Buddhism. Mahavira Jina gave us Jainism. And Guru Nanak, Guru Gobind, all these, they preached Sikhism. These are all part and parcel of Hinduism. They are not different from Hinduism. The base for all these religions which have come up in the later days, they also are, the foundation is Hinduism. So we have to go through all these, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Vedic wisdom, the great rishis, they gave us in the Upanishads. Upanishads is Another meaning, Upanishad, that which leads us nearer to the reality, so that wisdom, there are hundreds in the Upanishads, but most important are considered to be 108, and even among the 108 Upanishads, 18 are very popular. So all the wisdom of Bharatavarsha is contained in the Upanishads. And this Upanishadic wisdom, we have to translate it into action. They must reflect in our day-to-day action. The rishis were very wise. Concrete examples we have to present. How to live a life. We must present examples before the people. And for that purpose, they gave us Puranas and Itihasas. Purana means old legend stories. The knowledge of that ultimate reality taking to different forms for enabling man to contemplate and worship, they are all given in these Puranas. Vishnu Purana, Shiva Purana, Garuda Purana, Varaha Purana, Markandeya Purana. Each form of worship of the ultimate reality, Vishnu means who is everywhere, all pervasive, that ultimate reality, they are all described in the Puranas. Bhagavata Purana is there, Devi Mahatmya is there, Skanda Purana is there. So each Purana prescribes a particular method of adoration and worship of that ultimate reality, so that a person who is a Vanaprasthi or a Sannyasi or a Grihastha, he can sit and contemplate, meditate and follow that religious path. So all these are in the Puranas. Epics, Itihasas. What is Itihasa? There is a difference between the Puranas and the Itihasas. The Puranas are imaginative stories, the stories that Lord appeared as Varaha, Lord appeared as Narasimha. All these are all Puranas, imaginary stories created by the great rishis to make us understand things. In our class, when our teacher cites some example, imaginary example, we understand things. Like that, they created all these Puranas. Itihasas means it happened as this. It is a real, actual happening. Itihasa is. And the most important itihasas in our Hindu culture are Ramayana and Mahabharata. Ramayana is the story of the great king and emperor Lord Ramachandra, who was the son of Dasharatha, who came in the lineage of Manu Vamsha, Raghuvamsha. He came in the lineage of the great king Raghu and Dasharatha. So, Raghurama. And his whole life story, he is considered to be an Adarsha Purusha, an ideal person, how a man should live in all aspects of life. Adarsha Shishya, Adarsha Bharta, Adarsha Pita, Adarsha Putra, Adarsha Bhrata, in all realms, as an ideal brother, ideal husband, ideal son, even an ideal king. He set himself as an Adarsha. An ideal enemy in the battlefield, when the sun is setting, Ravana is standing there, the arms have slipped from his hand, Ravana is unarmed, Rama is right with his bow and arrow. One strike, he should have finished Ravana then and there, but he stopped, he took the arrow back and put it in its shield, and he tells Ravana, in Tamil, Kamban has written it, Indrupo in Alaiva, go today, come tomorrow, because I will not hit you. According to Dharma Shastra, after sunset, there should be no war. That is our Hindu tradition. And therefore, I am not going to kill you now. You go today, come tomorrow morning, we will continue our fight. So even an ideal enemy in all aspects, Ramachandra, the whole life of Ramachandra is life of ideals. Like that, Krishna Vasudeva, Rama presented a set of ideals at a particular period of time, which is known as Krita Yuga, and the succeeding Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Krishna appeared. In Rama, we found that as an ideal king and emperor, he let Ravana go. But when the Yuga changes, the values change, values deteriorate, and the ideals which we hold at a particular period of time, they will not be suited to the next period. They must change. Our method of action, our approach, everything must change. And that is presented by Krishna. In the Mahabharata, we see Krishna addressing Arjuna to take up Gandiva and fight against his own kith and kin. It is an ideal. Even Acharyas, Drona and Bhishma and all these great Acharyas or Kripa are before him. He says, now it is the need of the hour. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo, Maheshwara, that Vedas have proclaimed, that is all right. But in order to establish Dharma right now here, for the sake of the posterity, for the sake of the nation, for the sake of the people, population, you have to take up the Gandiva and strike. Arjuna asks, how can I kill my masters? Drona is there, Kripa is there, Bhishma is there. How can I kill them? My Pitamaha. How can I kill my own kith and kin? That is a good question that Arjuna asked Krishna, but Krishna says, no. Dharma samsthapanarthaya. To establish Dharma, you have to perform. Whether it is grandfather or guru or brother, whoever it is, strike. And there are certain occasions where Krishna has to employ cunning means. For example, in the case of Karna, he knew that Karna cannot be defeated so easily because he is a Dharmanishta, he has done so much of charity, and the charity that Karna had performed, it is a protective veil around him, and he cannot be defeated in the field. And therefore, Krishna takes to the guise of a Brahmana. A Brahmin, his work is to go and beg, and he goes to Karna. He begs for all the dharma that he has done, all the charity that he has done, the punya that he has acquired, he asks as dharma, as bhiksha. Why? Once it is given, the punya is exhausted, Karna can be annihilated. So these tricks we find in the Mahabharata because they are the need of the hour. Satyam vada dharmam chara, our great rishis had proclaimed, but it changes according to the age. What is Satya? What is Dharma? In the Krita Yuga, that was Rama's Dharma. In the Dwapara Yuga, this is Krishna's Dharma. And in Kali Yuga, it will still change. We have to adopt various tactics. If you have to protect the motherland, you cannot go and stand on the border and say that I am truthful, I am honest, I will not strike, I will not kill. You cannot protect the country. So there, you have to use all cunningness, cleverness, everything, and protect. So dharma also changes according to time. That is very beautifully presented in the Puranas, in the Itihasas of the country. And we have Dharma Shastras, Artha Shastra, Dharma Shastra, various fields of knowledge. We have Shad Darshanas, 10 fields of knowledge our great masters had given us. And these darshanas, teach us how to live a perfect life. Vedas, Upanishads had given everything. In the darshanas, our great masters had given us on the Brahmanas, they deal with the perfect performance of our karmas, karma kanta, etc. And Upanishads, knowledge aspect. And darshanas, darshana means vision. Vision of what? Our life, it is in different fields. And these fields of life, each one has got one goal. We do business for earning money. We conduct classes to impart knowledge. We do medical profession to cure people. So each field has got a goal and a method of doing things. These are all presented to us by the great rishis. The masters gave all this wisdom in the Vedas, Upanishads, etc. The Dharma Shastras, Artha Shastra dealt with economics, administration. The great Chanakya, he gave us a comprehensive work covering all aspects of Rajaniti, Arthaniti. Everything is covered. Administration, business, everything. Like that, Charaka and Sushruta, they gave us the Shastras regarding health. Charaka Samhita, Sushrutas, system of surgery. Surgery was, even heart transplant was known in India. And the first surgeon who performed heart transplant was Sushruta, according to our Indian sources. There is Ashtanga Hridaya, the foundation of Ayurvedic science. And then there is Dhanurveda. The great Rishi Parashurama, he was an exponent of Dhanurveda. And this Dhanurveda speaks about even missiles, what we call as today anti-ballistic missiles, etc. These were all developed by our great rishis long ago. So that Dhanurveda was given by the great rishis. Agricultural science, Vyavasaya, also botany, zoology, animal husbandry, all these aspects have been covered by the great rishis. The field of knowledge that is covered by the great rishis, it is like a vast ocean. We cannot drink all the water of the ocean. Only a few drops from here and there we can just take in our palm and sip it. That is all we can do in this Vijnana Bharati course. A few examples from different fields that will inspire us to go deep into it later. One who is interested in Ayurveda can go into it. One who is interested in Dhanurveda can go into it. One who is interested in Arthashastra can go deep into it. That is just like today's modern PhD specialization in a field. But an overall vision, view, that is what we are going to aim in these classes, Vijnana Bharati classes. I have given you the geographical background of Indian culture and heritage and the purpose of life. Now we will go into the analysis of the purpose of life by our great Vedic rishis. So, the rishis in their introductory part, as I already pointed out, they called out to all human beings, Shrunvantu sarve amritasya putraha. He called the entire humanity Amritasya Putraha. You have not come into this world just like the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, the birds, to live a certain period of time and become extinct. Man is not born to die. He is born to attain immortality. That is the purpose of human life. I am not here to die. I have come into this world. Mahakavi Subramanya Bharati, the great patriot, poet of Tamil Nadu, he sang, Poikkum Kaliyai Pokkinan Kritayugam Konarven. He said, this Kali Yuga, I will live through this Kali Yuga, see an end to this Kali Yuga, and I will see Krita Yuga coming. That means I will live for ages. I am not going to die. He emphatically proclaimed, I have not come into this world to die. That's what the great rishis gave, because Bharati was deeply involved in the study of the Vedas, and all his poems, they reflect the Vedic wisdom. So he said, Srinvantu sarve amritasya putraha. Amrita, we have all come into this world, and this amritasya putraha, we have to live a spiritual life. The greatest appeal of Bharatavarsha is religion. What is the religious experience that we have to acquire? We speak about God who created this world. We say every religion says that God created the world. Islam says Allah. Christians say Father in the heaven. So each one has got a concept of a God, and they all believe that it is that God who created. Which God we Hindus, we adore and worship. Very clear understanding. According to Hinduism, the God is a nameless, formless, ultimate reality. He is not Jesus, He is not Allah. These are all names given to us, given to the gods. Even in Hinduism, we say Shiva is God, Vishnu is God, Brahma is Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Kartikeya, Ganesha, all these are gods. But these are all names given to that ultimate reality, different names, different perspectives of that ultimate. The creative aspect, Brahma, the sustaining aspect, Vishnu, the dissolving aspect that we find in the universe, it is Shiva. All these are names and forms created by us, but God Himself has no name or form. He is Sarvavyapi. What is this? The great rishis in the Vedas, very simply they put it, Prajnanam Brahma. Prajnanam means consciousness. Earlier I said jnana is through indriya sparsha, through the contact of the senses, we get knowledge of all objects. Samjnana is a proper analytic understanding. I analyze and find out that this is a chair, this is a mic, this is a thing, this is a havan kunda. That is samjnanam. Vijnanam is analytic understanding, how it is made, how it works, how it functions. Prajnanam is consciousness. I understand that all that I see around, they are born from my own experience. Without experience, there is no world at all. If you become unconscious, what happens to the world? The world vanishes. As far as you are concerned, there is no world at all. It is the case of each and every individual. As long as we are conscious of ourselves and conscious of objects, there is a world. When the consciousness goes, there is no world at all. And therefore, the great rishis in their immense wisdom, they proclaimed Prajnanam Brahma. The whole universe is born out of our consciousness. Even Buddhism had borrowed, they say all these things, they are all only apparent, no reality. In reality, there is nothing, only consciousness is there. Even Buddhism and other philosophies, even Western philosophies, idealists, they have proclaimed that material world is only just an appearance. Bertrand Russell says, this is all appearance. The reality is only consciousness. You can't comprehend the reality with your brain because the brain is an appearance, part of your appearance. And therefore, the rishis were very clear, Prajnanam Brahma. They called that infinite consciousness. And where is that consciousness? You have to withdraw yourself. The jnana from indriya you get of external world. Withdraw the senses, your ears, your eyes, your nose, your tongue. Close everything, all fields, all means of knowledge, external knowledge. You close it and go within. Then when you go within, what happens? The world disappears, but you are still there. Even in the dream state and deep sleep state, you are conscious of the deep sleep experience. In the morning when you wake up, say, yesterday night I had a very sound sleep. What is that sound sleep? Because everything was extinct, I was only there. I was experiencing that bliss. So, Sat Chit Anandam, the ultimate Sat, that which exists, Chita is consciousness, and that is Anandam, the bliss that I enjoy in my deep sleep state. Sat Chit Ananda, that is the ultimate reality, Brahman. And that Brahman I can realize when I go within and identify myself with that supreme consciousness which is within me. That they called Jivatma. That which is manifest everywhere outside is Paramatma, and that which I experience is Jivatma. So, Brahman, Atman, and Ishvara. Ishvara is the name in which I adore and worship the absolute reality. This philosophy is very Catholic. It is not confined to a narrow religion or community or anything. They said all these for the entire humanity. Lokas samasta sukino bhavantu. Let the whole world be happy. Even the minutest beings, let them all be happy. That is the prayer of man. So it is universal Catholic philosophy. And they created various symbols. Now we have got Sri Chakra, we have got Omkara. You can worship God in all these names. You can worship Him as Savita Suryanarayana or Narasimha or Shiva. In any name, Hanuman, any name and form you can worship. Even in symbolism you can worship. We have got the Sri Chakra. Sri Chakra is a symbolic representation of consciousness. From one central source it develops and it goes to different directions. In the Sri Chakra you find angles, so many angles. There is the center, and from there you find so many angles in the Sri Chakra. That means consciousness expands in all. You have got that swastika, east, west, north, south, all these are symbolized in that swastika. So you can worship God not only in idols of God, of Rama, Krishna, Shiva, you can also worship Him in all these various symbols. Why this symbolism? Because the nature of our mind is always to go out. Not even 1 minute you can control the mind. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna asks Arjuna, control the mind, control your thoughts. And Arjuna says, with my bow and arrow, I can even stop the movement of air. I can stop the wind, I can stop the air from moving, but I cannot control my mind. It is not possible. So, mind, it is very impossible to control the mind as long as we are working through the senses in contact with things. I may be meditating. Suddenly I hear a sound, somebody knocking at the door. That meditation is disrupted. Immediately my attention goes to that sound. Somebody is walking in the street. I just follow. So it is not possible to control the mind. When will it be possible to control the mind? To withdraw it. To withdraw it, you have to concentrate on one particular object. Suppose I am playing harmonium or veena, or I am doing some artistic work. At that time, what happens? Even if you come and stand by my side, even if you touch my shoulders, I am not experiencing that because my mind is concentrated in the music, and my mind is concentrated in the picture, my mind is concentrated in that work that I am doing. So, awareness of all external things are stopped, and for that purpose, this symbol, this picture, and all these are used. The great rishis found out this truth that by concentrating on a particular object, and then they said, the more you concentrate on an object, now you start chanting mantra, Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. I have the picture of Lord Rama before me and I go on meditating. When you concentrate like that, a time comes when you identify yourself with the object of adoration and worship. There is no Rama, there is no you, there is only that consciousness. In Ramayana, very beautifully it is presented, Hanuman asks, Ramachandra was lying, reclining on the bed, Sita Mata was pressing his legs, and Hanuman was sitting by his side. And Ramachandra asked Hanuman, what do you think of me? What do you think of me? That is the question that Rama asks. Hanuman smiles and he says, when Sita Mata is pressing your legs and I see it, you are the Lord and she is serving my Lord. You are my Lord here. And Sita Mata is pressing your feet. When I realize that I am part and parcel of that supreme consciousness, Sarve Ramante Iti Ramaha, that which is everywhere, I am a part and parcel of it. You are the absolute and I am the part. So, Amsha Amshi Bhaga, you are full and I am a part of it. So, you are my Lord and I am your Dasa. Dasa and Yajamana Bhava, there comes. But once I go into my meditation and identify myself with that supreme consciousness, I am not different from you. And he jovially says, Sita Mata is pressing only my legs, not your legs. He jovially says. So, Dvaita, Advaita, Vishishta Advaita. Dvaita is, you are Lord, I am your servant. Vishishta Advaita is, you are the full and I am the part. And Advaita is knowledge of identity between you and with me. So, in the darshanas, we have got Advaita Darshana, Vishishtadvaita Darshana, Dvaita Darshana. All these are various fields of knowledge, and we will analyze all these fields of knowledge, Vedas, Upanishads, Shad Darshanas, and then the various systems of philosophy which has come out of this in the coming classes. Those who need these lessons, they are all in book form. The first part of it, the origin of Hinduism, the geographical background, and the Shaddarsanas, and the various systems of philosophy, they are all in the part 1, which is already published in book form by us. And the second part of various schools of philosophy, etc., they are also already in the form of lessons. They have been sent to our devotees in South Africa, Mauritius, Kenya, and other places. They are all preserved in our computer. Online, we can give to everybody, whoever wants these lessons, the entire Vijnana Bharati course from the most ancient times to the modern period. In the recent period, we had great philosophers and saints like Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, Swami Dayananda, and Rajaram Mohan Roy. All these great philosophers and scholars, they have all presented various aspects of our culture and beautifully in their writings. They are all condensed there. All these we will be seeing in the coming classes. Today, I confine my lecture to the presentation of the geographical background of our culture and heritage, and we will see the rest of it in the coming classes. Jai Shri Ram, Vande Madharam, Bharat Mata Ki Jai.